Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right through what we have been studying, particularly in the last two verses, the first two mantras of the third Valli, the Upanishad lays stress on the fact that we can go in whichever direction we want to go. We want to work towards moksha, we can do that. You want to work towards gaining all kinds of laukika phala as available to us in the Vedas, we can do that. Or even we can work towards phala, which is not prescribed in the Vedas. All kamya karma, that is also possible. And nowhere did you see a condemnation of anything. All it says is you decide where you want to go. And you work accordingly. In the last two mantras also, we saw this with a lot of focus. The question that arises is, this sharira, which has to be taken in whichever direction you want to take it, is a composite sharira, is put together. And you can, like you can do with any composite sharira, any composite object, which includes everything in the Jagat, break it down in many different ways. The sharira can also be broken down in many different ways. In fact, in modern day medicine, every specialist will only look at one particular component that he is dealing with and he'll treat you for that, completely ignoring everything else. That's one way of doing it. Other way of doing it is, the skin, dermis, epidermis, bone, marrow, blood, all the rest of that. Whichever way you break it, the question that remains is, what takes the sharira in the direction you want? First, what part of this composite sharira decides which way you want to go? If you don't know where you want to go, how does it matter where you go? Whichever direction you go, the same thing. So some part of this whole system has to decide, I want to go in this direction. This is my goal. Which part of this composite system decides that? And having decided that, some part of the system also has to then say, what do I have to do to get there? What do I push to get that goal that I have decided? And then you also have to say, okay, now do this. Now, there are many things in the Sharira which will push in the direction in terms of motion. Now, you can take the equivalent in many ways to understand this. I think one of the easiest to understand in current day world is possibly when a person decides that he wants to go to, he is in Coimbatore, in Asha Vidyalaya, he wants to go to a particular shop in Araspuram, which is one area in Coimbatore. So first decision is already done. So in this system that, the largest system that you can compare with, the individual decides, I want to go to Araspuram in this particular shop. In this particular shop, I get this particular object that I want to gain. So he says, fine. He gets into the car and he has a driver in the car. And he tells the driver, I want to go to this particular shop. And then he sits back and relaxes, or he should relax at least. You know, in the old days, when cars were meant to be driver driven, much of the controls were with the people at the back seat. The driver was isolated. There was a separate cabin for the driver. And you just had to tell the driver, go here. You know, the famous line in the old English, the ladies used to get out of the house just to get the air. And they will tell the driver, twice around the park and home, James. You know, I had a friend whose father was the High Commissioner, Bangladesh was High Commissioner in England. And he used to tell me what a pleasure it was to order the driver who is a Britisher, who've been ordering us for the last 300 years or whatever. I used to tell him, okay, go here, go there. You tell the driver where you want to go. And then you leave it to the driver because you don't have control. You just sit behind and relax. Then what does the driver do? So the decision has been done about where to go. Now the next part of the thing is left to the driver. How to go there, which route to take to get to that destination. You don't dictate to him saying that, no, you go like this or go like this. You can, but really the driver decides. Because he knows, oh, that particular road, there is some digging happening all over the city, they're digging anyway. So some digging happening, so we'll avoid that route. It's a longer route, but we'll go this way. He decides. Then he starts the car and it directs the car using the steering wheel. The steering wheel, in turn, controls the four wheels that drive the car, that pull the car along, that draw the car. And therefore, the person sitting in the car, the Yajamana, now suppose some part of the system is not working well. You know how the steering wheels connect to the four wheels. You know, there's a rack and pinion, there's a tie rod, and there are these links in the four wheels. Suppose something is broken. Although he has the steering wheel, the control in his hand, he can't do anything. Car will go anywhere because the wheel will turn any direction. So if any part of this system is not working, the car cannot go in that direction. There's no control. And the most important control is the driver sitting there deciding which route to take, taking charge of the car, taking control of the car. That is how it happens. Now, if you compare this whole thing to what happens to us, the person sitting in the car is the person who wants to go somewhere. The driver is the one who takes all the decisions. And in his hand, he has control. All the controls he has. And the wheels take him in the direction as long as he has control of the wheels through the steering wheel and the other linked components. If for any reason the driver is not doing his job, he is drunk that day, you don't know he's drunk. So he has no control over himself. Either he will cause an accident or he will take you somewhere else. Correct? So in our system, what are these components? Very beautiful analogy given in this mantra, which you can also compare to the modern day system. I am the one sitting in the car and I've decided where I want to go. But then I am dependent on the driver. And again, going back to the old days when motor cars were relatively new, most people didn't know how to drive. They had to depend on a driver. Today, of course, we all drive ourselves. Cars are designed to be driven by us. A similar example you can take, also Shastra takes an example of a boat adrift in the ocean. Same thing. I am in the boat, I want to reach the shore. And there's a boatman. The boatman guides the boat using the oar, or if it's a sailboat, using the sail. If he doesn't have oar in a rowboat, then he can't control it. It'll go anywhere. The path is clear, the destination is clear, but it may not happen. Or if your boatman is incapable, then also you have a problem. In fact, it reminded me of an old Hindi song, full song, one line in that. Those of you who understand Hindi, he says, "Maaji bagair naiya sahil ko dhoondti hai." Maaji is the boatman, the oarsman. Sahil is a beach, the destination that you want to reach. If the Maaji, the boatman, is either not there or incapable of doing his job, he will drift. So the Maaji becomes the important thing, the boatman becomes the important thing. That's why in many prayers, bhajans, you will see, we are asking Ishvara to be my boatman. Take me across the ocean of samsara. And this whole system comparison gives us a very beautiful analogy. And therefore, a method for us, a sadhana, to go whichever direction you want to go. I only know, I'm a karmata, I only know that Shastra says, beyond this life, I can go to one of the lokas and have a great time. If I can do that, that's my end goal. Therefore, I follow whatever Shastra tells me to do. That's a sadhana. Same Shastra also tells me that is temporary. And therefore, another person says, no, that is not what I want to do. I want to follow the Shastra only for Atma Shuddhi because my goal is not this, my goal is moksha. You decide. The first thing you decide is, what is your goal? Where do you want to go? And then you look at the system and which part of the system do you give instructions to go in whichever direction you want to go? And how do you make sure that it goes in that direction? What are the factors that come into play? Very, very beautiful. And there are people who say, oh, I don't know what's written in the Shastra. That's, to me, I think I only know this much. If I do this, I get certain pleasure. Therefore, that's all I'm going to do. Okay. That's what you do. That's what you do. There also, you have the same sadhana. Instruments available to you, the system available to you remains the same. How do you direct the system in the direction that you want to go? So this analogy, whether that of a boat adrift or more closely our own motor car or the ratha, which is what was common mode of transportation at that time, presumably, has also similar structure. All of them can be compared to the system that is our Sharira. So in introducing this particular mantra, Shankaracharya writes a small one line, as he often does. He says, can you put this on the screen, Anand? Okay. So it continuation from the previous mantra where we said there are two things, Jivatma and Paramatma. Jivatma being the reflected consciousness has no capacity to do anything without the reflected Atma. And the reflected Atma can be there only when the Atma itself is present. Therefore, Sakshi. Atma itself doesn't do anything. Both are there. And this Jivatma, which is the samsari, can decide which way he wants to go. So Acharya says, Tatra yaha upadhikritaha samsari. Tatra, previous mantra, in that upalabdhisthanam, both Jivatma and Paramatma are there. And they are always together. You cannot separate them because there is no Paramatma, there cannot be Jivatma. There is no reflected consciousness. Therefore, there, this upadhikritaha, the Jivatma, the Atma, because of the upadhi, the body-mind sense complex, we all know what the upadhi is. because of the upadhi, is called the samsari. What does the upadhi do? It appears to give to the Atma kartritvam, bhoktirtvam, etc. Therefore, samsari. Therefore, the Atma appears as though it is samsari. Atma appears as if it is the karta, as if it is the bhokta. Atma is not. But without the presence of Atma, there is no karta, there is no bhokta. So, tatra yaha upadhikrita, created by the upadhi, you get the samsari. Upadhi by itself is jada, can't do anything. Atma by itself doesn't do anything. It is only because of the enlivening Atma whose reflection is seen in the upadhi, we get this samsaritvam. So, upadhikrita samsari. What does he do? He has two available. Now, he ignores the ones who doesn't accept the Shastra. He wants to do whatever he wants to do, which is bulk of humanity. But restricting ourselves to the people who follow Shastra, he says, Vidya Vidyayoho
Vidya Vidyayoho
Adhikritaha
Adhikritaha
Moksha Gamanaya Samsara Gamanaya Cha.
Moksha Gamanaya Samsara Gamanaya Cha.
This Atma reflected in the Upadhi, appearing as though it's a Karta Bhokta, has the option of taking the path of Vidya, is Atma Jnanam, or taking the path of Avidya, which means continuation of samsara. It can take either path. It can go in the direction of Atma Jnanam, or it can go in the direction of continuing samsara. Vidya avidyayoho adhikritaha. Therefore, becomes adhikari for whichever path he wants to take. So, first thing is to decide which way you want to go. Where does the, connected respectively, Vidya avidyayoho adhikritaha, moksha gamanaya, samsara gamanaya cha. If you take the path of Vidya, Atma Jnanam, then it leads you to moksha, moksha gamanaya, for reaching moksha. Or, if you want to continue with the samsara, then the avidya path is available, samsara gamanaya cha. So, respectively, vidya will take you to moksha gamanam, and avidya will take you to samsara. You decide. Now, what sadhana do I use for going this way or this way? How to understand what do I do in the system? How do I make the system work in the direction that I want it to go? For that, this Ratha Kalpana is a beautiful Kalpana. You can use that to not only decide which way you want to go, but how do I make that happen? Tasya Tadubhaya Gamane
Tadubhaya
Sadhanaha
Sadhanaha
Kalpyate.
Ratha Kalpyate.
This Ratha Kalpana, this imagery, this Drishtanta, example, which if you helps us understand how my system, which is a put together system, how this operates, so that I can take it in the direction I've decided I want to go. I want to go in the Vidya direction, which is Moksha Gamana, or I want to go into Vidya direction, which is Samsara Gamana. I have decided that. Then, how do I decide which way to go? I understand that by understanding this Drishtanta. So, Ubhaya Gamane, either way you want to go, this sadhana is, this Ratha Kalpana gives me the easy understanding for deciding which way I want to go. It is really a wonderful example. We saw that you can use any example. You can use a boat adrift in the ocean. You can use a car in modern day parlance. But this Ratha fundamentally exemplifies our own system. Atmanagum rathinam vidhi.
Atmanam ratinam vidhi.
Shariragum rathameva tu.
Shariragam
Shariragam
rathamevatu.
Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi.
Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi.
Anapragrahameva cha.
Mana
Pragrameva
pragramaevacha.
Indriyani hayan yahuhu.
Indriyani
Indriyanayahu
hayahu.
Shayagum steshu gocharan.
Vishayagum
Vishayagumteshu
teshu
gocharan
gocharan.
Atmendriya manoyuktam.
Atmendriya
Atmendriya
manoyuktam.
manoyuktam
Bhoktyahurmanishinaha.
Bhoktetyahu
Bhoktyahurmanishinaha
manishinaha.
Bhoktehe iti ahuhu manishinaha. Bhoktetyahurmanishinaha.
Bhoktetyahurmanishinaha.
Two mantras are continuation to describe the entire system. There is not much anvaya you need to do here. It's very clear. Atmanam rathinam vidhi. Shariram rathameva cha. Rathameva tu. Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. Mana pragraha cha. Now, in this Ratha, there is a Rathin. A Rathin is the one who is sitting in the Ratha, the Yajamana, equivalent to our sitting in the car at the back, as the Yajamana. That in the Sharira, he says, Atmanam is the Rathin, is the Atma. Now, we have said that there are two Atmas, Jivatma and Paramatma. But really there are not two, there's only one. What seems to do everything is the Jivatma. Jivatma appears to do everything in the presence of the Paramatma, and since you cannot separate them, we attribute also to the Atma. I, the Sharira, etc., I am the one who is doing, I am the doer. But really there is no, Atma is not the doer. Jivatma is the doer because Atma exists. So that Rathin decides. In the Bhagavad Gita, we also seen, in fact, if you look at the picture of, in most places, the Bhagavad Gita Upadesha, you will find Arjuna sitting down in the Ratha. Lord Krishna has a Sarathi giving him Upadesha, and usually 4 horses, white horses. which take the Ratha, this is slightly different this time because Arjuna, who should have taken the decision of where he wants to go, he's not able to take a decision. Not uncommon. We all go through this. He's confused. Which way should I go? Therefore, what instruction should I give to my Sarathi? Take it here. Initially, remember, first he started by instructing him, saying, take me in the middle of the two fighting armies. I can see both of them. But then he got confused. It happens to us also. That confusion about the first step in the confusion, where do I want to go? Or Arjuna, the Sarathi happens to be also his guru because he accepted Sarathi as a guru and asks for guidance. Since comparing with this system, when I'm not sure, I need a guru to help me understand which way I should be going. Very first step itself, I need to understand, I need somebody to tell me. Somebody means a guru, Yashrotriya Brahmanistha. Tell me which way to go. So, Atmanam Rathinam Vidhi. Know the Rathin to be the Atma. Once the Atma, the controller, in 13th chapter also, similar this is given. Kshetra, Kshetrajna. The Kshetra is the Sharira. Kshetrajna is the knower of the Sharira. One who should decide which way the Sharira should go. There, of course, Kshetrajna is equal to Paramatma. But Paramatma doesn't do anything. Every action has to be done by the Jivatma. So Atma is the Rathin, the Yajamana who is sitting in the Ratha and directing the Sarathi to take the Ratha in a certain direction. And the whole Ratha is a Sharira. That's how we identify ourselves. Sharira, Abhimana is there. And I am in the Sharira. Even if you get that much, probably good, but I am the Sharira is our assumption. And that Sharira has many components. I am the Sharira. So in the imagery, in the example, the Ratha is considered the Sharira. That means everything starting from the nose of the horses all the way to the back of the Ratha is Sharira. So Shariram Rathamevatu. Now comes the most important part. You instructed the driver to go somewhere. It is the driver who gets the instructions from the Yajamana and who has to translate these instructions with adequate control of all the other mechanisms and take you in the right direction. That means he must be knowledgeable, he must be sober, he must be capable. All that is important. If any of these is missing, you are not going to go where you wanted to go. You're either going to end up in an accident or go in a completely different direction. So he becomes a central figure. I was thinking, if you look at, if you're trying to construct a house for yourself, you will come across a similar problem. As the owner who's trying to construct the house, you have a vision. You want a house like this. This is what you have in your mind. But if you try to directly tell the workmen that you want it like this, you're going to get a distorted house. You need somebody in between who understands you and your vision and can understand the language of the carpenter, the mason, the bricklayer, everybody, so that he can give them the instructions that they can follow. Same thing with your Sarathi. He has to understand what the Yajamana wants. Therefore, he must have pretty decent intelligence. We are assuming that the Yajamana is very highly intelligent, very highly erudite. At the same time, he should also have control over every element of the Ratha. Here he is saying, Buddhim tu Sarathim Vidhi. This Sarathi is the Buddhi. How many times we have discussed this? The body can go in any direction. Buddhi has to lead it in the right direction. What is right direction? What is good? What is correct? What is dharma? If the buddhi is unaware of this, if the buddhi doesn't know what is right, what is wrong, if, for example, Arjuna had some other Sarathi, he will simply wait for instructions from Arjuna. And whatever Arjuna says, he will do. But Sarathi himself must be very good in all respects. Must have discrimination. In the human system, we are the only ones who are given that kind of capacity. No animal has that capacity. Our buddhi is such that it can take us in the right direction. It can control everything else. But if that is not in good shape, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. So, critical component of this system that we use is the buddhi. And we've been discussing the buddhi can be helped to grow from childhood onwards. The effect is there. No, Swamiji, emotion also play a big role. Sure, the emotion plays a big role. Buddhi is nishchayatmika. Vyavasayatmika we've studied. Once you have the direction, the buddhi focuses on that and ensures that all steps are taken in the right direction. Like the engineer architect who builds a house, he knows what is to be built because it's understood from the Yamjamana. And he's able to break it down into components and tell this, each part of it, do like this, do like this, do it. Because he knows if we do like this, it will come out the way the Yajamana wants it. Buddhim to Sarathim Vidhi. No buddhi to be Sarathi. And how does the buddhi control downstream everything? Ultimately, in the case of Ratha, horses have to pull the Ratha, right? Horses have to pull the Ratha in any direction. That direction is controlled by the buddhi. In a car, same thing. The driver has to control it using the steering wheel to take the wheels in the right direction. A boatman, the same thing. He has to use the oar to direct it whichever direction that he thinks he knows correct. He knows that there's a whirlpool there. Avoid the whirlpool. You will get sucked in there. So the Sarathi becomes important both from the point of understanding what the Yajamana says and in translating that into action. So how does he do that? the Sarathi has the reins in his hand. And these reins are yoked, the horses are yoked to the thing. With the reins in his hand, he controls the horses. Go left, go right, go straight. You know, they also use, whether it's horses or bullock carts, they have various sounds they make. When I was a child, I used to go to my grandparents' place. And those days, from the station, they'd come pick us up in a fancy bullock cart in that village. And the cart, the bullock cart driver, he would make different kinds of sounds to make the bullock go in whichever way he wants it to go. In fact, in Delhi, when we were growing up as children, the most common mode of transport was what you call tanga. At that time, you have a horse-drawn carriage. So we got somewhat familiar with this. We don't get to see them these days much, but we're pretty familiar with how this fellow controls the horses. He has something to whip the horse with, but he will not whip it normally. He doesn't actually hit the horse or the bullock. He uses sounds. You know, I can't even make those sounds. What various sounds he makes. So he has control through the reins, and then that controls horses. And in this comparison, the mind, which is the sankalpa vikalpadi, which keeps oscillating, which if left alone will drift, has to be controlled. And through that, the horses have to be controlled. Then they will take you in the direction you want to go. Pragraham is the reins, lagam. They use that to control the horses. You know, they actually come from the two sides of from the face of the horse. They pull this side, it goes this side. They pull this side, it goes this side. In addition to the sounds they make. So that controls the horses. So this mind has to be under the control of the buddhi. Otherwise, mind has a tendency to go, just drift. It is mind. Sankalpa, vikalpa. It will go where fancies take it. We'll continue to read the second mantra and then we'll go back to the Bashyam. Now, the same comparison continues. You got the reins. The reins control the horses. Indriyani hayan ahuhu. These horses are referred to as the Indriyani, as the senses. Because they are reined in, you know, the word, the expression itself is reined in. They don't go everywhere. These haya is horse, hayan. The horses are controlled by they called the Indriyas are called the horses. So the buddhi mind complex has to control the senses. Otherwise, they have a tendency to drift towards wherever sense object is. So Indriyani hayan ahuhu. Vishayagums teshu gocharan. What is the combination, the senses and the sense objects? This is samsara. Senses and sense object combination is samsara. Senses identify corresponding sense objects. Sight looks for pleasant scenery. If you're driving past and see something unpleasant, like for example, there's an accident, there's a dead body, the tendency is to avert the eyes. You don't want to see that. Although the condition has changed. Today, everybody goes on to take a full video. Silly fellows. But that's not the idea. The idea is that anything unpleasant, you want to avoid. Or let's take another example. If there is a smell, the nose wants to go towards that. If there is nice bhaji being made somewhere, the nose tends to go towards that. But if there is a dirty smell, you want to avoid it. That's the nature of the sense and the sense object. Senses go where the sense objects are pleasing to the senses and avoid where the sense objects are not nice, abhorrent. So, Vishayans Teshu Gocharan. The object, the path is Gochara. Teshu Vishayan Gocharan. Of the senses, the Vishaya is the direction you want to go in, the path. Atmendriya Manoyuktam, this Atma, which is what decided initially where you want to go. Because of the combination of Indriya Mano, Manas, Manaha, Yuktam, with this combination, Bhokta iti ahuhu manishinaha. The experiencer, Atma is not the experiencer, but it is called the experiencer because of the combination of the upadhi. Therefore, Atma is called, you don't recognize as Atma as a separate entity because Atma is I. Therefore, you don't recognize as Atma as a separate entity. All you know is all of those components of the Sharira system, which one recognizes as I am alive, I am independent, I am individual, I am different from other Sharira, other bodies. These other bodies are inferior to my body, those other bodies are superior to my body. Therefore, they are inferior to me and these are superior to me. That is the kind of thinking that I as an individual, not recognizing that I identify with looks like an individual only because of the reflected Atma. Atma being neither Karta nor Bhokta. The whole Jagat is only Iva, as though the Atma is the doer, as though the Atma is the enjoyer, experiencer. Because of my inability to separate cognitively the Atma from the rest of the systems. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Lelayate iva, dhyayate iva, as though the Atma is moving around. Many places you will find Anupravishya, as if the Atma has entered into the Sharira. Atma has not entered anywhere. Atma doesn't enter. It doesn't have to. It's everywhere. But that is the impression, as though Iva. That Iva is such an important thing to understand. Atma is all there is. That Atma is I. There's nothing else. Therefore, everything that I see, whether in terms of action, whether in terms of other objects, whether in terms of time, whether in terms of space, is only Iva. You will find this Iva coming across quite a few places in the Upanishads. And the Iva has to be understood as clearly that Atma is Ekameva Advitiya Atma. Everything else that, if it exists or it appears to exist, is only Iva. And that Iva is superimposed on the Atma. And therefore we say Atma is the Karta Bhokta. Because as long as my point of view is from within the Jagat, within samsara, I can only see that much. Only when through jnanam, with the help of Shastra, with the help of a Guru, I'm able to pull myself and look at it. You can't even do that because it is you. How are you going to pull yourself out of it? But conceptually, I'm saying. And look at it and say, no, that's a point of view, which is limited point of view. When I look at it from a Paramarthika point of view, there is nothing else. And this Drishtanta makes us think that, okay, I start with the idea that this Sharira is I. And in this Sharira, there are the Jivatma, Paramatma, as we saw in the first two mantras. I don't have the capacity to split them, separate them. What do I do? That is why in so many places you see that Buddhi has to be trained. Buddhi is the only Upalabdhisthanam, only instrument available for us to do this. And having understood, Buddhi also goes. Buddhi is also part of Mithya Jagat, Samsara. But till I get to that space, I am Samsara, I am a Samsari. But what this example shows very beautifully is that by the Buddhi being strong, Buddhi being discriminative, Buddhi being correct in its thinking, it's not Nishayatmika because it's all negative Nishaya, it is correct Nishaya. And able to control the manas, the senses, everything on the way, on the one hand, and on the other hand, clearly understand where I need to go. Therefore, Purushartha Nishchaya. That has to settle down in the Buddhi. So everything revolves around the Buddhi only. And whether you like it or not, for the Buddhi to even get the Purushartha Nishchaya, there has to be certain preparatory work. There has to be an undistracted space for the buddhi to operate. There has to be a discriminative capacity to take the data that comes from the memory and from the external world. It is not there to control the senses. Senses, really, there's nothing much to control. Senses simply tell you this is what is. Then you decide whether to go after that or not go after that buddhi. Senses will report. That gets stored in the memory. In fact, that's my first understanding of AI. You get an experience. External input comes in. Then you know the result of that experience because you took a certain action. Both the data and the result that happened, and the action you took and the result you got get stored in the memory. So each time you get this input, each time you store the data, each time you store the action that you took, and each time what happened is also stored. Now that becomes new data. That new data allows the AI to constantly improve. So AI is very far away. It allows the buddhi to constantly improve. That is how we train the buddhi. Anything you take, earliest application of this was in chess playing, or any other playing for that matter. My cricket playing also. I know that if I don't cover my off stump, 2, 3, 4 times I got out like that, I know that I'm better store the data and make sure the next time I'm doing it correctly. The buddhi is the instrument, the sadhana we have in this entire model. Buddhim to sarathim vidhi. And it's true, you can see in this thing, in a car, if your driver is not in good shape, he doesn't know the roads, or he is drunk, or he is completely new, he doesn't know how to control the accelerator and the foot pedal and the brake pedal, you're going to get in trouble. So buddhi becomes the important thing. That's why this drishtanta is so good, because you understand what is going on. In fact, further verses will continue to expand on this concept of saying how the buddhi operates and how we can work with the buddhi to eventually understand the correct method. We will continue with the Bashyam tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.